My name is Marlo Voss. I'm 28, a Portland lifer by choice, and I still measure time in cups. In 2027, the city hums like an espresso machine. Steam and pressure, rain and neon. Scooters hiss past wet murals. Food carts throw cumin into the air. And tucked between second-wave nostalgia and AI-powered experiential cafes, we built a company we swore would never sell out. We called it Small Batch Signal, not a roaster, an index. We stitched together a map of ethically sourced suppliers, women-run collectives in Huehuetenango, co-ops carved out of old estates in Yirgacheffe, a scrappy microlot near Dalat, where the farmer texted me harvest photos with soil pH scribbled on the back of a seed packet. Our pitch was simple: commitment, not convenience, trackable provenance, human voices before metrics. There were two of us at the start, me and Theo Rangel, 31, absurdly calm, hair that behaved in humidity, the kind of founder who could take a second-place hackathon trophy and spin it into a manifesto. I handled suppliers, ledgers, and bruising calls when shipping delays meant missed rent for a farmer. Theo handled investors, brand decks, and the slow seduction of Portland's startup scene. It's our North Star, I'd say, tapping the laminated creed pinned over the espresso grinder in our shared studio. We never publish a supplier without consent. We never sell the list. The list is people. Theo would smile, lift his cup, and say, "To authenticity." Portland believed us. We hosted tasting nights and Zooms that ran 3 time zones at once. Students showed up with notebooks. Old-school baristas rolled their eyes, then stayed to ask questions. A local journalist called our idea a compass for a chaotic market. Then, 3 months ago, something small went wrong in a way that felt like a splinter under the nail. An email bounced. It wasn't just any email. It was my weekly check-in to Doña Inez in Guatemala. The bounce said my message had been flagged as duplicate content. I tried again from my personal address. It bounced again with a different error. Recipient temporarily unavailable due to contract review. Contract review. I stared at the screen until condensation ringed my mug. Who was reviewing her contract? We didn't use that word with our suppliers. We used agreement, consent, timeline, never contract. I pinged Theo on Slack. "Hey, do you know anything about a contract hold on Inez's email?" He replied fast. "It's probably their co-op migrating providers. I'll check." Coffee emoji, thumbs up. The casual kindness of someone with nothing to hide. Except the next hour, my admin access to our supplier atlas repo disappeared. "Probably an auth bug," Theo said when I confronted him. "You know how the API keys have been quirky?" His smile made my stomach feel like bad milk. That night, rain drilled our warehouse windows while I pulled a backup of every purchase ledger we'd kept. Tiny PDFs named like talismans: Oaxaca Ledger, May 27 PDF, Yirgacheffe, Pledge Loans.xlsx, Dalat, Harvest Notes, MD. I sat on the studio floor and read the names out loud. You can make a map out of money if every dollar has a face. The next morning, the face called me. "Señorita Marlo?" Doña Inez sounded careful, like she was testing ice. "A man from Harvest Halo visited yesterday. He had your notes. He said you sent him." Harvest Halo, a national buyer with smiling commercials and a reputation for greenwashed mergers. I put her on speaker and recorded with my second phone, hands shaking. "What notes did he have?" I asked. "The ones you sent last winter. Prices, yield. The story of my husband. He told me we could skip the middle people if we signed by Friday." Her voice bent on story. I felt something in me split cleanly. I told her I hadn't sent anyone. I told her to wait. I promised I would call back. Then I hung up and ran to the bathroom and threw up coffee into a sink that smelled like lemon cleaner and betrayal. At noon, Theo texted, "Last-minute investor thing. Grab lunch?" I typed sure because I needed to see his eyes. We met at Rook and Thimble, a cafe packed with laptops and dogs in raincoats. Theo ordered me my usual, like muscle memory could count as loyalty. He talked about Runway and a surprising warm intro from a corporate team that respected our mission. "What corporate team?" I asked. He waved a hand, just a conversation. That night, I searched the one place founders forget to hide things: calendar caches. In his shared calendar, a vestigial permission, there it was. HH Diligence. A Zoom link. A note. Deck Authenticity Narrative. I clicked the link. It asked for a passcode. I guessed harvest, then halo, then authentic. On the third try, it let me in. Not to the meeting, but to the cloud recording. Someone had left public sharing on. The file buffered, then played. Theo's voice filled my headphones, smooth, professional. We'd licensed the supplier atlas, exclusive segmentation by yield and social story. You can anchor your outreach with our credibility. It's proprietary narrative, not just data. A woman replied, crisp, coastal. Your narrative is your moat. We love it. But can you guarantee consent survives the transition? Silence. Then Theo. We control the list. My chest went cold and then hot. He kept talking. Numbers, run rate, community alignment. I paced the studio with the file recording on my phone, like if I captured it twice, it would become true enough to hold in court, or at least in the court of public shame. 30 minutes later, I had the full file. I scrubbed to the end and heard the part that made my knees give out. The woman again. Last thing, public perception. Who's the face if this goes live? Theo didn't hesitate. Me. I built the authenticity pitch. Not we, me. The next morning, my inbox held an embargoed press release forwarded by a friend at a PR shop. Harvest Halo announces strategic partnership with Small Batch Signal, with quotes from Theo about bringing transparency to scale. My name was there once, misspelled, as operations. Operations is what you call a person you want to erase. I drove to St. John's Bridge and parked under its green ribs. The river ran dull pewter. Joggers blew mist from their mouths. I sat with the windows fogging and thought about the first time I called a farmer at 3 a.m., their time just to talk through why a 3-week delay in payment could shutter a whole harvest. I thought about the nights I wrote receipts like prayers. I thought about how much of my belief I had poured into Theo, because belief looks best with two faces. When the tears came, they weren't loud, just steady, old rain meeting new rain. I wiped my face and opened my laptop. If he'd sold our list, he'd sold our story. Stories can be stolen. Stories can also be stolen back. I started a folder labeled Proof. Into it, I dropped purchase ledgers, supplier emails, screenshots of consent forms, a PDF of our creed with both our signatures, and the cloud recording, 2 copies, just in case. Then I opened a blank doc and typed a title. This is what you bought. A field guide to people harvest, Halo calls assets. My hand steadied. I drafted a shot list for guerrilla interviews. Farmers on WhatsApp, baristas with voice memos, a roaster who hated cameras but told the truth like it was oxygen. I wrote questions that tasted like fire. As the city lights blinked on, my phone buzzed. A new email slid into view. Subject, funds release Friday. The sender, a Harvest Halo associate I'd never met, CCing Theo. Looking forward to finalizing, it said. A calendar invite dinged for a press event at a waterfront venue with plants in rented pots. I stared at the invite until my reflection blurred. Then I whispered to the glass, okay. I booked a cheap video studio for tomorrow night, texted 3 suppliers, and scheduled a stream with a countdown clock nobody could ignore. I could feel my heart beat in my jaw. It didn't feel like fear anymore. It felt like caffeine and purpose. At 8:17 p.m., someone knocked on the studio door. I opened it and found Theo, wet from the rain, 2 lattes in hand, smile soft as latte art. Hey, he said. We should talk before the announcement. I stepped aside, let him in, and hit record on my phone. Theo shook the rain from his jacket and set the lattes on our work table. Steam curled between us, carrying that nutty sweetness I usually loved. Tonight, it smelled like betrayal. Long day, he said, easing into a chair like we were still co-founders, like nothing had shifted. Investors want clean narratives. You know how it is. I stared at him, waiting. The recording app blinked quietly in my pocket. Clean narratives? I asked. My voice came out sharper than I intended. Is that what you call selling the list? Theo froze, smile half-formed. What? You gave Harvest Halo our suppliers, their stories. You turned their lives into bullet points. His eyes flicked down, then back up. Smooth again, like he'd rehearsed this. Marlo, come on, you're overreacting. It's just leverage. If we want to scale, we have to play the game. Play the game. My stomach clenched. Our creed said never sell the list. You signed it. Theo sighed like a disappointed parent. Creeds don't pay rent. Contracts do. We're not running a nonprofit. You should be thanking me. This deal will put us on the map. On the map. I thought about Doña Inez, her voice bending when she said story. Was she on the map or under it now? I leaned forward. You didn't just sell a list. You sold trust. Do you understand? They trusted us. Theo leaned back, sipping his latte like it was armor. And they'll trust us more once they see we can deliver. Stability? Resources? Harvest Halo has the money to back it all. His calmness was unbearable. He wasn't a thief in his own mind. He was a visionary. I almost screamed, but I kept my voice low, steady. Do you know what I'm doing tomorrow? He raised an eyebrow, suspicious but smug. Enlighten me. I'm telling the story, the real one. Silence dropped between us. He finally set his cup down. You wouldn't dare. I let the words hang, heavy as wet coats on a rack. Inside, my pulse hammered. Part of me wanted to throw the phone on the table, play his recorded call with Harvest Halo right then, watch his face shatter. But another part whispered, not yet. Let him underestimate you. Let him think you're bluffing. Theo stood, gathering his jacket. Marlo, I'll forgive this outburst. Stress makes people dramatic. Tomorrow we celebrate, and you'll see. It's bigger than us. He left both lattes behind. I dumped his down the sink, the crema swirling like dirty water. Alone, I whispered into the quiet. Tomorrow they'll see. All of them. I opened my laptop again, tightening the script for my exposé. I layered screenshots, supplier voice clips, and Theo's Harvest Halo pitch until the file looked like a bomb, ready to go off. And in the corner of my screen, the countdown ticked closer. By dawn, the city would know the truth. I didn't sleep that night. The rain tapped the windows, relentless, like it was trying to remind me of every face behind the ledgers I was saving. By sunrise, my inbox was already lighting up with supplier pings. Word had traveled fast. Harvest Halo reps making visits. Contracts waved like golden tickets. I knew if I didn't move quickly, some might sign out of desperation. So I called them, one by one, across time zones and crackling lines. I asked them to tell their truth in their own voices. Some were nervous, others furious. But when I explained what Theo had done, what he was saying behind closed doors, their hesitation cracked. Doña Inez recorded a voice memo right then, in her kitchen with roosters crowing in the background. My farm is not for sale, she said, her voice sharp as a machete. We agreed with Marlo, not with corporations. I dropped her file into my folder labeled Testimonies. Then came Rafik, the Yurgachev co-op chair. His Zoom froze every 30 seconds, but his words burned clear. We signed with trust, not with ink. If Theo breaks trust, then the ink means nothing. Each clip was another thread in a tapestry. I didn't need to embellish. The truth was vivid on its own. By mid-afternoon, my proof folder looked like a documentary in waiting. Screenshots, ledgers, signatures, testimonies layered into a timeline. Maya came by with a sandwich I barely touched. She leaned over my shoulder, eyes wide at the files stacking up. This is strong, she whispered. But it's not enough. What do you mean, I asked. You need faces, cameras, people watching them speak. That's what goes viral, not PDFs. I hated that she was right. Screenshots catch attention, but faces change hearts. So I made calls again, this time asking for video. Some refused, afraid of corporate retaliation, but a few agreed. A barista in Portland who'd sourced beans directly from our list. A roaster in Vietnam who tilted her phone to show burlap sacks stamped with our logo. A cafe owner in Nairobi who laughed bitterly, saying, "Tell Theo he can't whitewash us into a slide deck." The files stacked higher. My chest tightened with equal parts pride and dread. But I knew one thing. I wasn't alone. That night, I wrote out my plan on sticky notes across the wall. Ledgers, testimonies, faces, timeline. Each one a brick in the wall I was building against Theo's story. At midnight, I set my alarm for the next morning. Because tomorrow wasn't just about gathering evidence. Tomorrow, I would start stitching it together. Something cinematic, something impossible to spin away. And yet, as I drifted toward sleep, my phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. Stop this before you regret it. The anonymous text burned in my mind all night. Stop this before you regret it. I stared at it until the words blurred, until my reflection on the phone looked like a stranger. Who sent it? Theo? Someone from Harvest Halo? Or just a troll catching wind of the whispers? Either way, it meant one thing. They were scared. Fear meant I had leverage. By morning, I shoved down the nerves and headed to the rented video studio, a warehouse loft with peeling paint, rented lights, and a camera that smelled faintly of dust. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine for the night. Maya met me there, arms full of cables and caffeine. "You ready to make a war film out of invoices?" she teased. But her eyes were deadly serious. We set up like gorillas, tripods, backdrops, monitors balanced on crates. I taped my sticky note timeline to the wall like a storyboard. Ledgers, testimonies, faces, timeline, each one its own shot. I started with the receipts, close-up shots of invoices, names, numbers, dates, zooming into the scribbled notes farmers had left in margins. Paid late, need next harvest advance. Then the voices. We layered Doña Inez's memo under slow pans of her family photos she'd texted me. Rafiq's glitchy Zoom audio, stitched against his hands sorting beans. The barista in Portland, camera shaking as she said, "We trusted them. We trusted Marlo." It was raw, unpolished, but it breathed. Every clip I edited made me feel lighter, like I was slowly prying Theo's hand off my throat. Halfway through, Maya stopped, headphones pressed to her ears. "Listen to this," she said. She'd found a moment in the Harvest Halo pitch recording where Theo bragged, "We own the authenticity story. My partner, she's just ops." Psst, that word again, like I was a cog, not a co-founder. I clenched my fists. "That's our hook," I said. "We'll show them what ops really looks like." We cut that clip into the timeline, right before the testimonies. The effect was electric, Theo dismissing me. Then the world of suppliers speaking up in my defense. At midnight, we exported a rough cut. My laptop whirred like it might explode. We watched it on the studio projector, light spilling across the brick wall. For 20 minutes, I didn't breathe. It wasn't perfect, grainy, shaky, full of rough cuts. But it was undeniable. A manifesto stitched together from voices too often ignored. When it ended, Maya turned to me. "If you release this, there's no going back." I thought of Theo's smug smile, the press release with my name misspelled, the text threatening me to stop. I nodded. "Good, I don't want to go back." And just as I said it, my email pinged with a new message. From pressaharvesthollow.com. Subject: exclusive announcement event tomorrow 10 a.m. The press event. The stage where Theo would sell our story as his. I looked at Maya, and she already knew. "We're not waiting for tomorrow night," she said. I smiled grimly. "No, we're crashing their show." The press event was staged like theater. Harvest Halo had rented a sleek waterfront venue. All glass and steel, potted plants arranged like set pieces. Rows of chairs gleamed under soft spotlights. Cameras perched on tripods. The air thick with the hum of anticipation and PR gloss. Theo was already on stage, hair immaculate, blazer crisp, mic clipped perfectly to his lapel. I watched from the back, my hood up, heart thundering. Maya stood next to me, phone in hand, already streaming. The announcer's voice rang out, "Please welcome the visionary behind Small Batch Signal's authenticity pitch, Theo Rangel." Applause, cameras flashed. Theo smiled that calm, curated smile. He began, his voice smooth, practiced. "When we talk about transparency, we talk about building trust at scale. Our supplier atlas isn't just data, it's narrative. It's the soul of coffee, captured and delivered to consumers who care." Every word felt like sandpaper against my skin. He was stealing the soul I had bled for, turning it into a slogan. Maya nudged me. "Now." I pulled back my hood, stepped into the aisle, and walked toward the stage. At first, no one noticed. Just another journalist moving up for a better angle. But when I kept walking, past the ropes, the murmurs began. Theo saw me. His smile faltered for half a second, then returned, tighter. "Marlo," he said, voice echoing through the mic. "Glad you could join us. Everyone, this is my partner, the operations backbone of our project." The word operations sliced through me. I took the second mic off its stand. My voice trembled, but it carried. "Operations? That's what you call it. Tell them what you really did, Theo." The room stilled. Every camera swiveled toward me. Theo chuckled nervously. "Marlo's been under a lot of stress." "No," I cut him off. "I've been under betrayal." I pulled out my phone, tapped play. Theo's voice spilled into the hall from the Harvest Halo pitch recording. "We control the list. We own the authenticity story. My partner, she's just ops." Gasps. The crowd erupted in whispers. Journalists scribbled, cameras zoomed. Theo's face flushed red. That's out of context. But Maya streamed from the front row, holding up her phone so the audience, and the thousands watching online, could see the video. Behind Theo's voice came the testimonies. Doña Inez declaring her farm wasn't for sale, Rafik saying trust was more than ink, the Portland barista saying we trusted Marlo. The venue buzzed like it might crack apart. Half the crowd cheered, half shouted questions. Theo reached for my mic, but I stepped back. You sold them out, Theo. You sold me out. And now the world knows. Security started moving, but the footage was already live, streaming across feeds and timelines. Theo's voice tried to cut through, but it was too late. The narrative had shifted. I locked eyes with him one last time, my voice steady. This is what authenticity looks like. Truth, not branding. And the room exploded. The press event collapsed into chaos. Security swarmed. Journalists shouted questions. Phones stayed lifted like a forest of glowing eyes. I felt hands tugging at my arm, but Maya pulled me toward the exit before they could drag us off stage. Outside, the Portland rain came down in sheets, cold and cleansing. We ducked into an alley, hearts pounding, laughter bubbling out of us not from joy, but from shock. You did it, Maya gasped, clutching her phone. It's everywhere. Livestream, TikTok cuts, reposts on activist feeds. Theo's face, oh God, you should see the comments. I leaned against the wet brick wall, dizzy. My phone buzzed nonstop. Messages, mentions, calls. Headlines already forming in real time. Co-founder hijacks Harvest Halo launch. Leaked recording raises questions about authenticity. Theo Rangel called out by partner in explosive confrontation. Part of me wanted to crawl under blankets, hide from the tidal wave. But another part felt something I hadn't in months, power. That night, I barely slept. The notifications were relentless. Support poured in from baristas, roasters, activists, even customers who said they'd cancel Harvest Halo subscriptions. But so did hate. Anonymous trolls calling me jealous, unhinged, a failed operator. By morning, Turk Justice for Marlo was trending. So was Conquer Team Theo. The world had split into camps, and I was their battlefield. Mark, our old mentor, called in a panic. Marlo, you need to control this narrative. Don't just let the internet spin it. Release the full expose now before Theo paints you as bitter. Maya leaned over my laptop, eyes flashing. He's right. We don't wait. We dropped the documentary cut, today. I hesitated, staring at the file we'd stitched together. It was raw, rough, but it was truth. And once it was out, there'd be no pulling it back. My phone buzzed again, this time a message from an unknown number. You think you've won? We'll bury you in lawsuits. I looked at Maya. She just shrugged. That means it's working. I clicked upload. The progress bar crawled across the screen. With every percent, my heart hammered harder. By the time it hit 100, I knew, whatever came next, the world would see the truth. And as if to underline it, my inbox chimed again. A new subject line, flagged urgent. Theo's official response, scheduled 2 p.m. press call. At exactly 2 p.m., Theo's press call went live. I sat on the couch with Maya, laptop balanced on my knees, heart thudding. The screen filled with Theo's face, perfectly lit, framed by Harvest Halo's glowing logo. He looked calm, even benevolent. Thank you all for joining, he began, his voice rich with fake humility. I want to address the unfortunate situation that unfolded yesterday. My former partner, Marlo Voss, released heavily edited clips that paint me in an unflattering and untrue light. I clenched my jaw. He's good. Theo leaned closer, like he was confiding in millions. I deeply respect our suppliers. Any suggestion otherwise is misleading. The recordings have been manipulated. We remain committed to fairness and sustainability. The journalist nodded, typing furiously. Some looked skeptical, others sympathetic. Theo was working the room, recasting himself as the reasonable one. Regarding Ms. Voss, he said, lowering his voice, I want to acknowledge her passion, but passion is not the same as leadership. Running a business requires pragmatism. Unfortunately, she has mistaken personal grievances for facts. My phone buzzed nonstop as hashtags exploded. Theo speaks, fake Marlo, authenticity gate. Maya groaned. He's trying to gaslight the entire industry. I slammed my laptop shut. Not the entire industry, just the ones who haven't seen the full cut. Because as he spoke, Our expose was spreading faster than his spin. Activist pages, indie coffee blogs, even mainstream outlets were embedding clips. And the comments weren't buying his charm. Still, I knew charm was dangerous. Charm could bend truth if left unchecked. By evening, my inbox was a battlefield. Lawyers threatening, suppliers thanking me, journalists begging for interviews. And then, an email subject line that froze me cold. Cease and desist, immediate removal of defamatory content. Harvest Halo's legal team was officially coming for me. Maya read over my shoulder, her lips tightening. They're scared. That's why they're pulling the legal card. I swallowed hard. Yeah, but scared people fight dirty. The night stretched long. Outside, Portland's neon bled across the rain-soaked streets. I sat with my laptop open, staring at the words, cease and desist. For the first time since this began, doubt gnawed at me. What if they really could bury me in lawsuits? What if Theo came out on top anyway? But then my phone pinged again. A video attachment from Rafik. He was standing in the co-op, surrounded by sacks of beans, holding today's newspaper to prove the date. His voice was steady. Marlo, we stand with you. Use this. Show them. I pressed play twice, 3 times, letting his words wash over me. Maybe Theo had the stage. Maybe he had lawyers. But I had something he couldn't fake. Community. And tomorrow, I'd use it. The next morning, my phone buzzed before dawn. It wasn't trolls this time. It was solidarity. Clips poured in from all over the world. Farmers in Guatemala holding signs that read, "Not for sale." A cafe in Seoul writing, "We stand with Marlo" in latte art. A roaster in Nairobi live streaming while his workers chanted my name. Maya scrolled through them, eyes wide. This isn't just about you anymore. It's a movement. She was right. What started as Theo stealing a list had become a referendum on authenticity itself. I uploaded Rafik's co-op video first. Then I cut together a short montage of all the messages flooding in. Within hours, our authenticity ice hours was trending across platforms. But with the love came fire. Harvest Halo doubled down, releasing a polished ad campaign overnight. Glossy shots of farmers smiling under their logo, soft piano music, Theo's voice narrating about partnership. I nearly threw my laptop across the room. They're parading stock footage like it's proof. Maya put a hand on my shoulder. Then we don't just argue, we show receipts. So we pushed harder, supplier contracts, signed letters, time-stamped screenshots, all uploaded as a public archive. Anyone could check, verify, share. Journalists started circling. Independent outlets wanted interviews. A major podcast invited me to speak. Even late-night hosts cracked jokes about Mr. Authenticity. For the first time, Theo wasn't controlling the story. That afternoon, Mark called again. His voice shook. Marlo, I just heard Harvest Halo is panicking. They're holding emergency meetings with their board. Some investors are already pulling back. I let the words sink in. Investors pulling out. Theo's empire cracking. But victory wasn't in my chest yet. Not when another email pinged. This one colder than any threat so far. From legalaharvesthalo.com. Subject, pending litigation, damages sought, $20,000. 20 million. My throat went dry. Even if I won the narrative war, how could I survive that number? Maya looked at me, eyes sharp. They want you scared. Don't give it to them. I stared at the figure again. 20 million. And for the first time, I wondered, could the truth really hold against that much money? The number haunted me. 20 million. It sat in my head like a boulder, heavy and immovable. No matter how many clips I cut, no matter how many hashtags trended, that figure loomed. I stared at the email until the letters blurred. My hands trembled. For the first time, I whispered aloud. Maybe I should just stop. Maya slammed her palm on the table. No, that's exactly what they want. You stop, they win. But I can't fight $20 million, Maya, even if I'm right. Her voice softened, but her eyes stayed sharp. Then we don't fight it alone. That night, I drafted a shaky statement. Half apology, half surrender, but before I could post it, my inbox chimed again. This time, it wasn't a threat. It was an invitation. From legalaidcollective.dprotonmail.com. Subject, we believe you, let's talk. I clicked, heart racing. It was a coalition of lawyers who specialized in defending whistleblowers. They'd seen the expose, seen the lawsuits, and wanted to represent me, pro bono. Maya read over my shoulder and grinned. Looks like the cavalry just arrived. Still, I was skeptical. Why would strangers risk themselves for me? But then the next email landed, from a professor in Guatemala who said her entire law class wanted to volunteer research. Then another from a journalist in Berlin, offering to publish a serialized investigation with me as co-author. Piece by piece, the isolation cracked. I wasn't just Marlo versus Theo anymore. I was a node in something bigger, an uprising of people who'd had enough of corporate theft disguised as partnership. I leaned back, dizzy, tears pricking my eyes. For weeks I'd felt gutted, used, but now I felt carried. Maya squeezed my shoulder. You're not alone in this. You never were, but now you can see it. The fear didn't vanish, but it loosened. 20 million still hung above me like a blade, but now I had a shield. I opened a new document, typing the title, Part 2 of the Exposé, The Global Voices. If Theo wanted war, he wasn't facing just me anymore. He was facing all of us. By the weekend, my inbox had transformed into a war room. Lawyers from the collective sent me templates to counter the cease and desist. Journalists lined up, asking for interviews. Activists offered to coordinate hashtags, translations, even protests in front of Harvest Halo offices. For the first time, my fight felt like more than survival. It felt like strategy. Maya sprawled across my couch, laptop open, juggling spreadsheets of video submissions. We've got over 200 clips now. Farmers, roasters, cafe owners, all calling Theo out by name. I nodded, scrolling through a map someone had built showing pins of every testimony. It stretched across continents, a constellation of voices, all pointing back to Portland, 2027. But while our side swelled, Theo struck back harder. That morning, Harvest Halo dropped a full-page ad in national newspapers. Partnership, not division. It showed Theo shaking hands with a farmer. Those sharp-eyed readers quickly spotted it was stock photography. By noon, their lawyers filed a preliminary injunction, trying to force platforms to remove my videos. I slammed my laptop shut. They're trying to erase me. Maya crossed her arms. Then we outpace them. Every time they pull something down, 3 more copies go up. That's the internet. She was right. Within hours, mirror accounts popped up everywhere. Exposés reposted on servers in Iceland, Brazil, Vietnam. I couldn't stop it now, even if I wanted to. But the pressure mounted. My landlord slipped a note under my door. Please resolve your legal issues. Neighbors are concerned. A stranger followed me from the cafe to my apartment, muttering "sellout" under his breath. The movement was bigger than me now, but the danger was personal. That night, during a live stream Q&A with supporters, a question flashed. Marlo, what keeps you from giving up? I hesitated, staring at the scrolling comments. Thousands of usernames, thousands of voices. Then I answered, because this isn't just my story anymore. It's ours, and they can't buy all of us. The chat erupted, hearts, coffee cup emojis, fire icons. I ended the stream with my pulse racing. It was true. I wasn't just fighting Theo. I was fighting for everyone whose stories were stolen. But just as I set my phone down, an email pinged. This one not from lawyers or trolls or allies. From Theo, RangeleyHarvestHalo.com. Subject, meet me alone tonight. I stared at the email. Meet me alone tonight. It was past midnight. Portland rain slicking the streets. Neon bleeding into puddles. I showed Maya the message. No way, she said instantly. It's a trap. Maybe, I admitted, but maybe it's also leverage. If Theo's reaching out directly, he's desperate. Maya crossed her arms. Desperate people do stupid, dangerous things. She wasn't wrong, but something in me knew I had to go. Not to negotiate, just to look him in the eye, to hear what he was willing to say without cameras rolling. So I went. The cafe he picked was closed, its windows fogged, lights low. I pushed the door and found Theo sitting alone at a back table, blazer off, sleeves rolled. For once he didn't look polished. He looked tired. Marlo, he said, voice softer than I'd ever heard. Thank you for coming. I didn't sit right away. Why call me here? He gestured to the chair, because we're both losing control. And if this keeps going, it'll burn us both. I finally sat, keeping my phone recording in my pocket. You started this, Theo. You sold them out. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. I sold a list. I didn't sell souls. Don't turn this into something bigger than it is. I almost laughed. Bigger? It already is bigger. You lit a match and the fire's global now. Theo leaned forward, his eyes sharp again. That's exactly the problem. You think this is about justice. But investors don't care about justice. They care about stability. You're destabilizing everything. And if you don't stop, they'll come for you harder than you can imagine. I met his gaze. Then let them. At least I'll go down telling the truth. For the first time, anger cracked through his mask. Truth doesn't pay legal bills, Marlo. Truth doesn't build companies. Narrative does. And right now, you're wrecking both of ours. Silence thickened between us, broken only by rain against the windows. Finally, Theo's voice dropped. Walk away, and I'll make sure you're protected. Keep going and, well, you've seen the lawsuits. It was an offer, or a threat, or both. I stood, my chair scraping loud against the floor. You're wrong, Theo. Truth does build. It builds trust. Something you'll never understand. His face darkened. Then we're enemies now. I turned to leave, my pulse hammering, but just as I reached the door, he called after me. You have no idea who's backing me, Marlo. You're not just fighting me, you're fighting an army. I didn't look back. Then let's see how your army does against the world. And I stepped back into the storm. The storm followed me home. I peeled off my soaked jacket, sat cross-legged on the floor, and replayed Theo's words in my head. You have no idea who's backing me. He wasn't bluffing. By morning, the headlines confirmed it. Harvest Halo had announced strategic partnerships with 3 multinational beverage companies, giants with war chests deep enough to swallow lawsuits, media buys, and lobbyists whole. The message was clear. Theo had called in the cavalry. Maya paced the kitchen, phone buzzing nonstop. This isn't just Theo anymore. This is conglomerates, PR machines, politicians. They'll smear you into dust. I stared at the articles, scrolling through press releases glossy enough to blind. Then I don't fight them on their field, I said. We make our own. That afternoon, I hosted a live stream. Not polished, not scripted. Just me in my apartment with stacks of supplier contracts behind me. I told them the truth. About the list. About Theo. About the threats. I showed emails, letters, video clips from Guatemala, Nairobi, Seoul. I ended with Rafek's steady voice. Trust is not ink, it is lived. Tens of thousands watched live. By night, millions had viewed the recording. Comments flooded in. Support, anger, calls for boycotts. The next day, activists organized sit-ins at Harvest Halo's flagship cafe. Photos went viral, college kids holding signs that read, Our coffee, our truth. For the first time, it felt like Theo's army wasn't the only one marching. But then came the counterstrike. An exposé about me hit the wires. Grainy photos of me at college parties. Claims I'd exaggerated supplier relationships. Accusations I was a bitter ex-partner. Maya slammed her phone down. They're going personal. My chest tightened. Every headline clawed at my skin. For a moment, I felt 28 again, small, doubting, wondering if maybe they were right. But then I remembered the cafe signs, the farmer clips, the barista's shaking voice. I took a deep breath. If they want personal, I'll give them personal. My story, unedited. Maya grinned. Then part 3 of the exposé isn't just receipts, it's Marlo. I opened my laptop, heart pounding, and I began to write. I stared at the blank document for a long time. For weeks, I'd built my exposés with receipts, testimonies, data, cold proof. But now they were smearing me, not just my work. The only way forward was to turn my life into evidence too. So I began to write. I wrote about my childhood in a logging town, my mother working double shifts and brewing cheap coffee on the stove. The smell of burnt grounds filling our kitchen. I wrote about how, at 18, I saved tips for a plane ticket just to visit a co-op farm in Costa Rica. How I cried when I first shook hands with growers who knew every bean by name. I wrote about mistakes, botched contracts, shipments that rotted because I trusted the wrong broker. Nights I almost quit because integrity felt heavier than rent. And I wrote about why I started Small Batch Signal, not for investors, not for clout, but because stories matter, because every bag of beans carries lives. And I couldn't stand watching those lives reduced to marketing angles. Maya read over my shoulder, silent until I paused. Then she said softly, This is the one, Marlo. This cuts deeper than any ledger. We decided to film it. Not polished, just me in front of a single camera, speaking the words I'd written. My voice cracked. My hands shook, but I didn't stop. When we uploaded it, titled Why I Fought, I expected it might fade among hashtags. But within hours, the video exploded. People didn't just share it. They quoted it. They made clips. A teacher in Chicago showed it to her students. A farmer in Kenya filmed himself watching it, nodding silently with tears in his eyes. It wasn't just my story anymore. It was theirs too. But the bigger it grew, the harder Theo hit back. 2 days later, Harvest Halo filed a defamation lawsuit in federal court, this time naming not just me, but some of the suppliers who'd spoken on video. Maya's voice shook with fury. They're not just coming for you, they're coming for them. And in that moment, I realized, my fight wasn't just about proving Theo wrong. It was about protecting the people who had trusted me to tell their truth. The lawsuit hit like a hammer. Not just my name on the docket now, but Doña Inez, Rafik, and even the Portland barista who had spoken up on camera. Seeing their names printed next to defendants made my stomach twist. Maya slammed her fist on the table. They're punishing the people who trusted you. They're trying to scare everyone else into silence. She was right, and it worked, at least for some. A few suppliers sent messages apologizing, begging me to take their clips down. Fear bled through every word. I couldn't blame them. I was terrified too. But then Rafik sent another video. Standing in the co-op warehouse, his workers behind him, he spoke steady and clear. If Harvest Halo wants to drag us into court, so be it. They cannot drag us out of dignity. I cried watching it. Not because of fear this time, but because of courage. That night, I called every contact I had. Activists, lawyers, journalists. We needed more than sympathy. We needed structure, defense funds, organized protests, a coalition that wouldn't scatter at the first threat of legal fire. Within days, a campaign launched, Brew Justice. Stickers, posters, donation links spread across cafes and campuses. Law students volunteered hours. Small roasters pledged percentages of sales. It wasn't just a hashtag anymore. It was boots on sidewalks, money in jars, voices echoing in front of Harvest Halo's glass towers. Theo went on TV, calling it a misguided mob. But footage of peaceful marches under umbrellas, people holding signs that read "Coffee is people, not product," went more viral than his polished speeches. One morning, I opened my door to find neighbors had taped a note there. "We believe you, Marlo. Keep going." I held it to my chest, trembling. For the first time in weeks, the fear loosened its grip. But that night, as I worked late, a brick shattered my apartment window. I froze, glass sparkling across my desk. Outside, I saw nothing but rain and shadows. A note wrapped around the brick read, "Next time, it won't be glass." The brick lay on my desk all night. Its message burned into my brain. Next time, it won't be glass. I swept the shards into a box, but the sound of broken pieces clinking together echoed long after. Every shadow outside my window felt like a watcher. Every creak in the hallway made me flinch. Maya insisted on staying over, sleeping on the couch with a baseball bat propped nearby. "You're not alone in this, Marlo," she said, eyes fierce even through exhaustion. But fear curled in me like smoke. For the first time, I asked myself if the cost was too high. Not just for me, but for everyone dragged into the fire. The next morning, I logged into the campaign's donation page. The counter stunned me. Hundreds of thousands raised overnight. Messages stacked below. "Stand strong. We've got your back." For every brick, 10 more voices. Tears blurred my vision. Strangers were holding me up, one pledge at a time. That afternoon, an activist coalition invited me to speak at a rally downtown. I hesitated, then agreed. If they wanted to scare me silent, the best answer was louder truth. When I stepped onto the stage, the sight hit me like a wave. An ocean of umbrellas in the rain, faces turned up, chanting, "Coffee is people." I took the mic. My hands shook, but my voice carried. I spoke about Doña Inez's machete-sharp words, about Rafik's steady defiance, about why trust mattered more than profit margins. The crowd roared. For a moment, the fear lifted, replaced by something electric. But backstage, Maya showed me her phone. Her face had gone pale. "Theo just announced Harvest Halo is filing for an injunction to freeze your personal bank accounts." My chest tightened. I wasn't just fighting for the movement anymore. They were coming to gut me, financially, piece by piece. I looked back at the chanting crowd, the people who had turned my fight into theirs. And I made a vow in that moment. If they want to starve me, I'll make sure the world knows who's holding the knife. 2 days later, my bank app stopped working. Every time I tried to log in, the same message appeared. Account access restricted. Please contact legal department. Theo had delivered on his threat. My accounts were frozen. Rent, bills, even the few savings I had. Locked away like they weren't mine anymore. I sat on the floor, phone slipping from my hand. They're starving me out, I whispered. Maya knelt beside me, gripping my shoulders. Then we feed each other. That afternoon, the Brew Justice Coalition launched a new campaign. Fill Marlowe's cup. Independent cafes across the country set out tip jars with my name scrawled on them. Roasters pledged profits from single origin bags. College students set up Venmos and split donations across accounts so nothing could be frozen in one place. Within 48 hours, groceries showed up at my door. Neighbors knocked with envelopes of cash. Someone even sent me a prepaid card with a note. Consider this community rent. I was stunned. I hadn't asked, but they gave anyway. But while the support lifted me, Theo escalated. Harvest Halo filed a motion to subpoena my emails, trying to paint me as a thief of my own data. At the same time, glossy ads hit YouTube, calling their work a revolution of trust, complete with slow-motion shots of Theo smiling with coffee farmers. The gaslighting was relentless. That night, as I lay awake listening to the rain, I asked myself, how do you fight someone who owns the narrative machine? The answer came the next morning. An encrypted message dropped into my inbox from an address I didn't recognize. Subject: I used to work for Harvest Halo. I have something you'll want to see. Attached was a file folder labeled Internal Supplier Acquisition Strategy. I clicked it open, breath-catching. Inside were documents, contracts, emails, slides, proof that Theo hadn't just stolen our list. He'd been selling suppliers to multiple corporations at once, double-dipping, leveraging authenticity like poker chips. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was fraud. The folder sat open on my laptop like a loaded weapon. Contracts signed in secret. Slide decks full of buzzwords like supplier leverage and narrative ownership. Emails where Theo casually discussed selling the same farm to two corporations, pocketing fees from both. It was worse than I imagined. This wasn't just unethical, it was criminal. Maya read over my shoulder, her face pale. Marlo, if this is real, Theo's not just a liar. He's committing fraud on a global scale. I whispered, then this could end him. But with that thought came another. If I release this, they won't just come for me. They'll burn everything around me to ashes. The weight of it pressed into my chest. For the first time, I wondered if I could carry not just my truth, but everyone else's safety too. That night, we video called Rafiq. His screen froze every few seconds, but his voice came through steady. If what you have proves fraud, you must share it. They will smear us no matter what. But the truth? That is the only weapon we have. Doña Inez sent a voice note. Fear is how they win. Story is how we survive. Their words steadied me. We began verifying the files, cross-checking contracts against known supplier dates, reaching out to contacts inside distribution networks. Every detail tightened the noose around Theo's operation. By dawn, we had a timeline. Every double deal, every lie, every dollar siphoned. Maya pinned the printouts across the wall like a detective board. This isn't just an exposé, she said. This is evidence. If we release it right, they can't just spin it away. They'll have to face it in court. But before we could move, my phone buzzed again. A new message from an encrypted account. Be careful who you trust. Not everyone on your side is really with you. I froze. Maya looked at me. What does that mean? I didn't know. But as I stared at the glowing screen, my gut told me the war had just entered its most dangerous phase. The anonymous message replayed in my head all night. Not everyone on your side is really with you. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the rain ticking like a metronome against the glass. Who could it be? The lawyers? The journalists? Someone in Brew Justice? Or worse, Maya? The thought stung, and I hated myself for even letting it flicker. She'd been with me since the first brick, since the first clip went viral. She was my anchor, but paranoia doesn't care about loyalty. It gnaws at every certainty. The next morning, I tested the waters. I shared a fake draft file with a small circle. Something harmless, nothing tied to the real documents. Within hours, rumors about embezzlement spreadsheets surfaced on a fringe blog. My stomach turned cold. The leak was real. Someone close had passed it on. Maya saw the headline, fury flashing in her eyes. So it's true, we've got a mole. We went silent, the weight of suspicion heavy between us. That night, we gathered with a handful of activists at a safe house cafe. I spread the verified documents across the table, pages glowing under dim light. "This is it," I said. "But if we release it raw, Theo will spin it. We need a strategy, multiple drops, across outlets, so no one voice can be silenced." One activist suggested staging simultaneous live streams in different time zones. Another offered encrypted servers for hosting files, impossible to scrub. As we debated, I studied their faces, every nod, every hesitation. Who had betrayed us? But then Maya leaned in, whispering, "Paranoia is what they want. Don't give them that win." She was right. The leak had shaken me, but it couldn't stop me. If anything, it proved just how dangerous the truth had become. By the end of the night, we had a plan, a rolling release, each document paired with testimony, translated into 5 languages, mirrored across platforms. If Theo tried to silence one, 10 more would rise. I packed the files back into my bag, pulse steady again. But as we stepped out into the rain, a black SUV idled across the street. Its engine purred, headlights low, and for the first time, I wondered if the danger wasn't just digital anymore. The black SUV didn't move. It just idled across the street, headlights dim, rain dripping off its hood. I pretended not to notice, but every nerve in my body was screaming. Maya whispered, "They're watching." I swallowed hard. "Then let them. They'll see I'm not running." But the truth? My legs wanted to sprint. Over the next few days, the SUV appeared again, parked near the cafe, outside my apartment, even by the courthouse. Never close enough to act, just close enough to remind me they were there. The intimidation worked. I slept less, jumped at shadows, checked my locks 3 times. One night, I woke to find a note slid under my door. "Digital battles are fun. Real ones hurt more." I sat on the floor, clutching the paper, my chest pounding. This wasn't just lawsuits and PR wars anymore. This was muscle. When I told the lawyers, they advised me to keep quiet. "No proof it's them," they said. "Could make you look paranoid." But paranoia was all I had left. Maya paced the room. "Marlo, we can't keep waiting for them to break us. We need to drop the files. All of it. Now." I hesitated. If we did, it would be war. No more slow reveals, no more careful pacing. It would mean putting every card on the table and daring Theo to strike back. I thought of Doña Inez, machete in hand, saying dignity was worth the risk. Of Rafik, calm in his warehouse, refusing to bow. And then I thought of the SUV, purring outside like a predator in the dark. Fear clenched my stomach, but something stronger rose too, defiance. I turned to Maya. "Get the servers ready. If they want to scare me silent, then we'll answer with noise they can't ignore." Her grin was sharp. "Let's burn the house down." I opened the folder of files, my hand steady at last. Tomorrow the world would see everything. The morning of the drop felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. I sat at my desk, the folder of documents glowing on my screen. Outside, the sky over Portland was gray, heavy, like it knew something was coming. Maya leaned over my shoulder. "Once this goes live, there's no turning back." I nodded. "Good, I don't want to turn back." At 9 a.m., we hit upload. The files spread like wildfire. Encrypted mirrors lit up in Berlin, Nairobi, Mexico City. Live streams rolled out across 5 time zones, activists narrating each document in multiple languages. Hashtags trended within minutes. Sanrahak dark roast files, Tak Kabru justice, Act truth over Theo. The evidence was undeniable. Contracts showing double deals, emails with Theo's name at the bottom, boasting about leverage, PowerPoint slides that treated farmers like poker chips. By noon, major outlets had picked up the story. Evening news anchors held up printouts, their voices taut with outrage. And by night, Theo's carefully polished narrative cracked. A senator tweeted, "If these allegations are true, immediate investigation is warranted." Suppliers announced they were cutting ties with Harvest Halo. Investors pulled funding. Stock tickers bled red. Theo appeared on TV, face tight, voice strained. He called it a coordinated smear campaign. But behind his eyes, I saw panic. The mask was slipping. That night, I returned to the same cafe where he had once summoned me. This time, the lights were on, packed with people holding phones, watching the streams. When they saw me, they cheered. I wasn't sure I deserved it. I was exhausted, bruised, broke. But I felt something stronger than fear: vindication. I stepped onto a chair, raising my voice above the crowd. This fight was never about me. It was about the people whose stories were stolen, whose lives were sold like spreadsheets. Today, we took some of that back. The room erupted, umbrellas thumped against the floor like drums. And then Maya whispered in my ear, "Look." On the cafe TV, breaking news flashed. Federal investigators raid Harvest Halo headquarters. I closed my eyes. For the first time, I breathed easy. Theo's army had crumbled. His empire of lies roasted under the same heat he once claimed to control. And me, I was still standing. The lesson was clear. Profits fade, narratives spin, but truth is the brew that endures.